You have been told that manifestation is a process of creating something new. You have been taught that you must visualize, affirm, and chase an outcome until it finally appears in your life. You have been conditioned to believe that you need to convince the universe to give you what you want. But there is a deeper truth unfolding beneath everything you have been practicing. You are not manifesting in the way you imagine. You are not bringing something into existence through force or intention. You are accessing a version of reality that is already available in the quantum field. As you hear this, something inside you may shift. A part of you recognizes that you have been trying too hard. You have been pushing, reaching, and stretching toward a future you believed was far away. Yet the future you desire is not distant. It is not waiting for you to build it from nothing. It is already formed as a potential version of your life. It exists as a pattern of consciousness, a frequency, a timeline that has always been present, even if you could not see it until now. You may feel a mix of curiosity and relief. Curiosity because this idea challenges everything you thought you knew about creating change. Relief because it means you do not have to force reality to cooperate with your desires. The universe is not withholding anything from you. It is offering you infinite versions of yourself at every moment. The question is not what you can manifest. The question is which version of you are willing to access. Imagine standing in a room filled with mirrors. Each mirror reflects a different version of who you could become. One shows you living with clarity. Another shows you living with abundance. Another shows you living with confidence. All these reflections exist at the same time. You do not create them. They are already there. You simply choose which one you step toward. Your inner state determines which reflection becomes solid and real. As you move deeper into this journey, you begin to see that manifestation was never about forcing change. It was about shifting your identity. It was about aligning with the version of you who already holds the experience you desire. When you understand this, manifestation becomes access. Creation becomes selection. Effort becomes coherence. You stop trying to build a future and start tuning yourself to the future that resonates with your highest potential. Right now, you may sense an opening, a quiet awareness that invites you to question everything you once believed about how reality works. This awareness is not confusion. It is awakening. It is the beginning of a new relationship with your own consciousness. It is the moment when you step out of the old paradigm of effort and into the deeper truth of access. As you continue, you will begin to understand that the world you experience is shaped from the inside out. You will discover how your emotional and mental frequency selects your timeline. And you will see that your future is not something you manifest. It is something you enter when you shift the state of your being, the illusion of creation. You have been taught to believe that manifestation is the art of creating something that does not yet exist. You grow up hearing that you must work for your dreams, fight for what you want, and constantly prove yourself worthy of receiving what you desire. Even when you step into spiritual teachings, you often carry the same belief. You think you must convince the universe to give you something it has not yet prepared. This creates a subtle tension inside you, a quiet pressure that tells you that the life you want is far away and must be brought into existence through effort. This belief creates resistance. When you think you need to create something new, you automatically feel the weight of not having it. You enter a loop where desire becomes proof of absence. You visualize because you believe you lack. You affirm because you fear doubt. You try to control your thoughts because you think one wrong emotion will push your dream away. The more you try to create your future, the more you reinforce the idea that you do not yet have access to it. This is the illusion. Creation is not the first step in the process of manifestation. You are not the builder of your reality. You are the selector of your reality. The universe is not waiting for you to build something. It is waiting for you to align yourself with what is already present in the field of possibilities. When you try to create, you separate yourself from your desire. When you try to access, you merge with it. The belief in creation often comes from the physical world. You see an object and know that someone made it. You see a structure and know that someone built it. Your mind tries to apply the same logic to consciousness, but the quantum field does not operate through construction. It operates through resonance. Matter appears solid, but it is shaped by deeper layers of energy and information. Reality is not built like a house. Reality emerges like a frequency coming through a radio. When you realize this, something relaxes inside you. You no longer feel the pressure to force your future into existence. You no longer feel responsible for outcomes that seem out of reach. You begin to see that the future you desire is already real in a non-physical form. It already exists as a possibility waiting for your alignment. The moment you stop trying to create and start tuning into what is already there, the resistance dissolves. You also begin to understand why your life has certain repeating patterns. If you approach life as something you must create, you remain locked in the identity that does not yet have what it wants. But when you see that the experience already exists as a frequency, you shift from effort to alignment. You shift from wanting to embodying. You shift from doubt to coherence. The illusion of creation keeps you chasing. The truth of access brings you back to yourself. It shows you that the real work is not in shaping the world, but in shaping your internal state. And as your internal state shifts, the version of reality that matches it becomes visible. The quantum field of possibilities. To understand why manifestation is actually quantum access, you need to understand the nature of the field you are living in. Everything you see, everything you experience, and everything you think is solid is built upon a deeper layer of existence called the quantum field. This field is not mystical. It is not hypothetical. It is recognized in modern physics as the invisible foundation from which all matter and energy arise. But what matters most for your journey is not the science itself. It is what the science reveals about who you can become. The quantum field contains possibilities, not certainties. It holds every version of every event that could ever unfold. It contains a version of you who succeeded. It contains a version of you who healed. It contains a version of you who stepped into clarity, peace, abundance, or purpose. These versions do not exist as fantasies. They exist as energetic patterns, as informational structures already woven into the field. They are not waiting to be created. They are waiting to be accessed. You live in only one of these possibilities at a time, but you are surrounded by all of them. Every potential timeline exists simultaneously, like channels on a television. You experience one channel because your frequency is tuned to it. This tuning is not done through effort or intention alone. It is done through your emotional state, your beliefs, your expectations, and your sense of identity. These elements together create the signature that determines which version of you you align with. Superposition, one of the fundamental principles of quantum physics, shows that a particle can exist in multiple states at once until it is observed. In a similar way, your future has multiple states. You have countless possible outcomes, but the version you experience is the one you observe through your internal frequency. This is why two people can live the same situation and walk away with completely different outcomes. They are tuned to different potentials within the same field. The quantum field does not respond to desire. It responds to coherence. When your inner state matches the frequency of a particular possibility, that possibility becomes your reality. It moves from potential to actualized experience. You are not pulling it toward you. You are stepping into alignment with it. You access it by becoming the version of yourself who already lives it. As you absorb this understanding, you may sense a shift in your perception. You begin to see that your future is not shaped by chance or luck. It is shaped by resonance. Every time you align with a new emotional state, you tune yourself to a new timeline. Every time you release an old belief, you unlock a new version of yourself. Every time you elevate your awareness, the quantum field reorganizes around your new identity. This field is not something outside of you. You are a part of it. You interact with it every moment of your life. And the more conscious you become of this interaction, the more intentionally you can step into the timeline that reflects your highest potential. The truth about identity and frequency. Every timeline you access is determined by one thing. It is not your desire. It is not your willpower. It is not how much you visualize or how many affirmations you repeat. The timeline you step into is shaped by your identity because your identity is your frequency. Who you believe you are and the emotional state you live in most of the time forms the vibrational signature that selects your reality and the quantum field. Your identity is not what you think on the surface. You might believe you are your personality, your memories, your habits, or your past, but those are only expressions of deeper patterns. Your true identity is the energetic state you hold within yourself. It is the combination of your emotions, your beliefs, your expectations, and the story you tell about your life. This internal structure broadcasts a frequency into the field. That frequency determines which version of reality becomes available to you. This is why desire alone cannot shift your life. Wanting something intensely does not align you with it if your emotional state contradicts it. You cannot access a timeline of abundance if you are vibrating fear or scarcity. You cannot access a timeline of confidence if your inner state is ruled by doubt. You cannot access a timeline of clarity if your mind is full of confusion. The field does not respond to words. It responds to coherence. Coherence means that your thoughts, emotions, and inner posture are aligned. When you want something but feel unworthy of it, you are incoherent. When you desire change but fear it at the same time, you are incoherent. When you ask for more but expect less, you are incoherent. Incoherence keeps you locked in your current timeline because your frequency does not match the version of you who already holds what you want. You access new realities by becoming coherent with them. To shift timelines, you align your emotional state with the version of yourself who already lives the experience you desire. If the future you is calm, you cultivate calm. If the future you is confident, you embody confidence. If the future you is abundant, you develop the emotional clarity of someone who already feels supported. You are not pretending, you are tuning. You may notice that when you shift your emotional state, even slightly, your perception of reality changes. You see opportunities you never noticed before. You respond differently to challenges. You speak differently. You think differently. These changes are not small. They are the first signs that your frequency is shifting. And as your frequency shifts, the quantum field begins to reveal a different set of possibilities. Identity is the gateway to every timeline. When you expand your identity, you expand your access. When you elevate your emotional frequency, you elevate your reality. When you step into the version of you who already exists in the field, the world begins to shift around you. This is not imagination. This is the mechanics of problem with traditional manifestation techniques. You may have tried every manifestation technique you could find: visualization, affirmations, vision boards, scripting, keeping your vibration high, repeating the same sentences every morning, trying to stay positive no matter what. And for a moment, some of these practices may have given you hope. But over time, you probably noticed that the results were inconsistent. Sometimes things worked, sometimes nothing changed, and sometimes your efforts made you feel even more stuck. The reason these methods often fail is not because you did them wrong. It is because they were built on the wrong assumption. They assume you must create your desire. They assume your wish is a separate reality you need to pull into existence. They assume the universe is waiting for you to convince it. These assumptions place you in a position of lack, even when you feel inspired. When you practice manifestation from a place of lack, you reinforce the identity that does not yet have what it wants. Visualization can be powerful, but only when it matches your internal frequency. When you visualize a future that feels impossible, your body reacts with tension. Your mind pushes back with doubt. Your emotions highlight the gap between where you are and where you want to be. You may think you are moving closer to your desire, but you are actually amplifying the feeling of separation from it. The field responds to your frequency, not your mental pictures. Affirmations function the same way. When you repeat words your body does not believe, your internal system rejects them. You say you are abundant, but if you feel insecure, the deeper signal is insecurity. You say you are confident, but if you feel doubt, the deeper signal is doubt. The quantum field responds only to the deeper signal. It mirrors the emotion, not the sentence. This is why you can affirm something every day and never see results. Another issue with traditional manifestation is that it encourages you to chase specific outcomes. You begin to monitor your progress constantly. You look for signs, you measure your vibration. You evaluate every event as a reflection of whether your manifestation is working. This creates pressure and emotional exhaustion. The more you chase a result, the more you confirm that the result is missing. You become trapped in a cycle of wanting without accessing. You may also have been told to stay positive at all times, but forced positivity is not coherence. It is avoidance. It disconnects you from your actual emotional state. When you suppress your real feelings, you disconnect from your true frequency. The future you that you want to access is not built on superficial positivity. It is built on emotional alignment. The reason traditional manifestation techniques feel inconsistent is that they are built on effort rather than identity. They try to change your reality without changing the version of you who is experiencing that reality. They focus on external outcomes instead of internal coherence. Until you shift your identity, no technique can create permanent change. The truth is simple. You do not manifest by forcing. You manifest by aligning. You do not create your future. You access the future that matches the frequency you choose to embody, accessing instead of creating. There comes a moment when you realize that everything you have been trying to create already exists as a potential reality. You begin to understand that manifestation is not about constructing a new future. It is about accessing a version of yourself who is already living the experience you desire. This understanding shifts your entire relationship with the universe. Instead of trying to influence external events, you begin to adjust your internal frequency. Instead of pushing, you begin aligning. Accessing a reality is similar to tuning a radio. Every possible experience exists as a frequency within the quantum field. When you tune the radio to a specific station, the station does not appear out of nowhere. It was always there, broadcasting continuously. You simply were not aligned with it. In the same way, the future you want is already broadcasting its emotional and energetic signature. When you shift your internal state, you begin to hear the signal. You are not creating the broadcast. You are matching it. This process becomes clearer when you understand that consciousness is not passive. It interacts with the field at every moment. Your beliefs shape your perception. Your emotions influence your decisions. Your expectations guide your attention. All of these elements together form the frequency that determines which version of reality you experience. Access begins with awareness. When you observe your inner landscape without judgment, you begin to see which frequency you are tuned to. Access is not about forcing yourself to feel a certain way. It is about allowing yourself to return to the version of you who already feels aligned. There is a version of you who does not live in fear, a version who does not doubt, a version who does not question their worth. That version exists as a state of consciousness. When you release the emotional patterns that keep you anchored in your old identity, you naturally rise to the frequency of your future self. You access your future self through presence. When you become present, your mind stops reinforcing the stories of your past. Without those stories, your emotional frequency begins to shift. Presence is the space where access becomes possible. In presence, you feel the subtle pull of intuition. In presence, you sense the timeline that resonates with your highest potential. You do not chase it. You merge with it. Access also requires trust. Not blind trust in external circumstances, but trust in your inner alignment. Trust that the version of you who has already evolved is real. Trust that the field is responding to your coherence. Trust that the shift you feel inside is enough to change your experience. When you trust the process, you release the need to measure or control outcomes. And when you release control, the field has space to reorganize. The moment you stop trying to create and begin to access is the moment your reality changes. You no longer fight for a new life. You step into the frequency of a version of you who already lives that life. You discover that access is not effort. Access is remembrance. The inner shift mechanism. There is a moment in your evolution when something inside you begins to shift in a way that you cannot fully explain. It does not happen because you forced it. It does not happen because you repeated enough affirmations or visualized long enough. It happens because a deeper part of your consciousness finally recognizes a new frequency and begins to align with it. This is the inner shift. It is the moment when your identity loosens its grip on the old timeline and quietly turns toward a new one. The inner shift does not begin with loud emotions. It begins with subtle awareness. You start noticing that certain habits, reactions, and patterns no longer feel natural. You observe yourself responding to situations with more clarity and calm than before. You feel a soft distance from old fears. You start questioning beliefs that once felt absolute. This gentle unraveling is not confusion. It is the beginning of alignment. As the shift develops, you feel a growing sense of neutrality. Not indifference, but spaciousness. You no longer react impulsively to every thought or emotion. You begin to witness your inner world instead of being controlled by it. This witnessing opens a doorway inside you. In this doorway, you can sense the presence of the version of you who already lives your desired future. The future self does not speak in words. It speaks in frequency. It speaks in the way your body feels when you imagine a possibility that resonates with truth. During the inner shift, your nervous system begins to relax. The survival patterns that anchored you to your old identity start to lose their power. As they dissolve, your emotional frequency rises naturally. You do not push it upward. It rises because the weight holding it down is lifted. This upward movement is subtle but steady. It signals that you are moving closer to the state of consciousness that belongs to your future self. You may also feel moments of unfamiliar clarity. These moments feel like glimpses of another version of you, a version who knows what to release. A version who knows which direction feels aligned. A version who no longer needs external confirmation to trust the path ahead. These glimpses are not imagination, they are signals. They are previews of the timeline you are accessing. The inner shift becomes stronger when you stop arguing with your intuition. You begin to trust the quiet impulses that arise within you. You start making choices that reflect your future self instead of your past self. These choices may seem small at first, but each one carries a frequency. Each one strengthens your alignment. Each one moves you closer to the timeline where your future self is already real. The inner shift is not a single moment. It is a process of dissolving the identity that kept you anchored to the old and opening space for the identity that aligns with the new. It is the bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. When you feel this shift happening, you are not imagining progress. You are entering the field of access. The emotional signature of the future self. Every version of you that exists in the quantum field carries a distinct emotional signature. This signature is the energetic imprint of that identity. It shapes how that version of you thinks, how you react, how you speak, and how you experience the world. When you access a new timeline, you are not accessing events. You are accessing the emotional state that generates those events. This is why emotion is one of the most powerful tools for shifting reality. Emotion is frequency. Frequency is identity. Identity is access. Your future self does not exist as a story. It exists as a feeling. Before you see the external changes, you sense an internal shift. The version of you who is already confident carries a calm steadiness. The version of you who is abundant carries a deep sense of safety. The version of you who is clear carries an emotional sharpness that cuts through confusion. These emotional qualities are not outcomes of the future. They are the cause of it. If you want to access the timeline where your future self already thrives, you must learn to embody the emotional signature of that version now. This embodiment is not about forcing yourself to feel something you do not feel. It is about tuning into the memory of a future state that already exists. The quantum field does not differentiate between past and future. Both are accessible as frequencies. When you imagine the emotional state of your future self, you are not fantasizing. You are connecting to a real timeline. You are sensing a real version of yourself. The feeling is the bridge. You may notice that certain emotions arise naturally when you think about the life you desire. You might feel openness, expansion, or curiosity. You might feel a quiet knowing or a subtle confidence. These emotions are not predictions. They are signals. They indicate that your consciousness is brushing against the frequency of your future self. When you allow these emotions to grow within you, even for a moment, you strengthen your connection to that timeline. The emotional signature of your future self is always available to you because it is not separate from who you are. It is a dormant version of your identity waiting to be activated. You activate it not by imagining external events, but by becoming familiar with the internal state that creates those events. When you tune into this emotional frequency, your thoughts begin to change. Your decisions begin to change. Your perception begins to change. And as these internal shifts accumulate, reality begins to reorganize itself around your new signature. You access new timelines through emotional coherence. When your feelings align with the version of you you want to inhabit, you step into that frequency. When you hold that frequency, even briefly, the field responds. It presents experiences that match your new identity. These experiences are the external reflection of the emotional signature you have chosen to embody. The key is to stop treating emotion as a reaction to circumstances. Emotion is a portal. When you feel the emotions of your future self, you access the timeline where that future is already real. Changing your state changes your timeline. Every timeline you access begins with a shift in your internal state. This may sound simple, but it is one of the most profound truths you can understand. Your state of consciousness is not just a mood or a temporary feeling. It is a frequency. It is a lens through which you interpret the world. And because your interpretation shapes your decisions, and your decisions shape your experiences, your state becomes the doorway to a new reality. When you change your internal state, even slightly, you begin to experience a different version of the world. If you wake up feeling overwhelmed, you notice problems everywhere. You interpret neutral situations as threats. You feel limited and your choices reflect that limitation. But if you shift into calm, even for a moment, your perception opens. You may see solutions that were invisible before. You may respond to challenges with clarity instead of fear. You did not change your external world. You changed the timeline you were tuned into. Your state acts like a magnet. When you live in fear, you attract outcomes aligned with fear. When you live in doubt, you attract outcomes aligned with doubt. When you live in coherence, you attract outcomes aligned with clarity. The world you see is not fixed. It is filtered through your emotional frequency. This is why shifting timelines is not about changing actions first. It is about changing the state from which those actions arise. Consider what happens when you experience a moment of clarity. Suddenly, a decision that felt heavy becomes simple. A problem that felt impossible becomes manageable. You may think the problem changed, but it did not. You changed. Your timeline shifted because your state shifted. When you embody the emotional signature of your future self, your decisions begin to reflect that version. You choose differently. You act differently. You act differently. You interpret life differently. And these differences create a new path. The shift in state also influences the opportunities you recognize. Two people can walk through the same environment and see completely different possibilities. One sees obstacles. The other sees openings. One sees danger. The other sees growth. This difference has nothing to do with luck and everything to do with frequency. When you elevate your state, you elevate the opportunities you become aware of. Neuroscience supports this. Your brain is constantly predicting your future based on your emotional state. When your state is low, your brain predicts danger and filters your perception through that expectation. When your state is elevated, your brain predicts possibility and filters your perception through expansion. This predictive mechanism creates the feeling of stepping into a different reality, because in a very real sense, you are. Changing your state is not pretending. It is aligning. It is remembering which version of you you are choosing to embody. And as that embodiment strengthens, reality organizes itself around your new frequency. You begin to walk a different path because you have become a different version of yourself. Every timeline you enter is a reflection of the state you hold. When you understand this, you stop waiting for the world to change before you change. You recognize that your internal shift is the catalyst for your external transformation, entering the timeline you once desired. There comes a point when the shift inside you becomes strong enough that you begin to step into a timeline you once believed was far away. This moment is not marked by fireworks or dramatic events. It is marked by a quiet sense of alignment, a feeling that your inner world and the reality you want are finally moving together. You do not force your way into this timeline. You enter it the same way you tune a radio. You match its frequency. When you enter a new timeline, the first thing you feel is a change in your internal atmosphere. The future you once desired stops feeling distant. It begins to feel familiar. You sense a calm recognition, as if you have returned to a place you have visited before. This recognition is not imagination. It is resonance. You are merging with a version of yourself that already exists in the quantum field. As this resonance grows, you begin to think like your future self. You interpret events from a higher perspective. You choose actions that align with your new identity. These choices are not forced. They emerge naturally because they belong to the frequency you are accessing. You start noticing that the thoughts you once struggled to maintain are now arising effortlessly. Your mind has tuned to a new pattern. You may also notice subtle changes in the world around you. Opportunities appear that match your new state. Certain challenges dissolve. Certain paths open, conversations shift. People who resonate with your new frequency enter your life. This is not coincidence, it is coherence. When you step into a new timeline, the field organizes itself around your identity, creating experiences that reflect your shift. External changes may be gradual, but the internal shift is immediate. You feel lighter. You feel more grounded. You feel more certain, not because you can predict the future, but because you can feel the alignment of your internal compass. Your actions flow from a deeper intelligence rather than old survival patterns. You no longer chase outcomes. You move with a sense of inner direction. As you continue to embody this version of yourself, the timeline becomes stable. You no longer drift back into the emotional patterns of your old identity. You stop revisiting the thoughts that kept you small. You begin to operate from a higher baseline of consciousness. This stability creates momentum. The more you embody your future self, the more natural it becomes to remain in the timeline where that version is real. Entering a new timeline is not about forcing your life to change. It is about becoming the person who naturally lives that life. When your internal state matches the emotional signature of your future self, the timeline becomes inevitable. You walk into it not by effort, but by resonance. You feel the truth of who you are becoming long before the world reflects it back to you. And that feeling is the proof that you have already entered the future that was waiting for you. Maintaining quantum access. Once you step into a new timeline, the journey is not finished. Entering a higher version of yourself is powerful, but maintaining access to that version requires stability, not force, not effort, not perfection, stability. You remain in your new timeline by strengthening the emotional and mental coherence that brought you into it. The more stable you become, the more natural the new reality feels. It becomes less like a temporary peak and more like your new baseline. Maintaining access begins with awareness. Your old identity does not disappear immediately. Its patterns may return in subtle ways. You may feel moments of doubt, moments of fear, or moments of hesitation. These old emotions are not signs that you have failed. They are remnants of who you used to be. You maintain the new timeline not by suppressing these emotions, but by recognizing that they no longer define you. You see them rise and you let them pass the same way you would watch clouds moving across the sky. Another key to maintaining access is staying anchored in the emotional signature of your future self. If that version of you carries calm, you return to calm. If that version carries clarity, you return to clarity. If that version carries confidence, you return to confidence. You do not force these states, you recall them. You remember the frequency you have already experienced. Every time you return to that emotional state, you reinforce the timeline where that version of you exists. Your environment may also shift as you stabilize your new frequency. Certain behaviors, relationships, or habits may no longer resonate. You maintain access by releasing what pulls you back into your old identity. This release does not need to be dramatic. It can be gentle, it can be gradual, but each release strengthens the coherence of your new state. You make space for the reality that reflects who you are becoming. You also maintain access by trusting the signals that arise from your future self. When you feel a quiet intuition, you listen to it. When you sense a direction, you explore it. When you feel the need to rest, you honor it. These signals guide you through the timeline you have entered. They prevent you from slipping back into old patterns and help you stabilize the new identity. Presence is another essential component. When you stay present, you stop feeding old stories. Your mind no longer drifts into imagined fears or projected doubts. Presence brings you back into the frequency of the now, where quantum access happens. Presence is the home of your future self. It is the anchor that keeps you aligned with your new reality. Maintaining access is not about holding a perfect emotional state. It is about returning to alignment each time you drift. It is about choosing coherence over confusion. It is about choosing awareness over reaction. The more consistently you make these choices, the more solid your new timeline becomes. Eventually, your future self is no longer a future version. It is simply who you are. As you reach this final stage of the journey, something inside you begins to settle. There is a quiet understanding forming within you, an awareness that feels both new and strangely familiar. You begin to realize that everything you were seeking was never outside of you. The future you desired was not waiting far ahead. It was already present as a possibility, calling you long before you knew how to hear it. The shift you have made is not the beginning of something new. It is the return to something you have always carried within your consciousness. Integration means allowing this truth to sink into your awareness. You are not a being trying to manifest a life that does not yet exist. You are a being tuning into the version of yourself that already holds everything you have been seeking. You are not building your future. You are remembering it. You are not chasing a new identity. You are stepping into the identity that has been quietly waiting for you in the quantum field. As you integrate this understanding, you may begin to notice a deeper sense of calm moving through your life. You no longer feel the need to control every step. You no longer question whether you are on the right path. You no longer doubt the timing of your evolution. Instead, you begin to trust the intelligence that governs the field. You feel guided, not by external signs alone, but by the internal resonance that tells you when something aligns with the frequency of your future self. You also begin to reinterpret your past. You see that every challenge you faced was shaping your emotional frequency. Every delay was refining your identity. Every moment of confusion was preparing you to recognize clarity. Your past was not a barrier to your future. It was the training ground where your consciousness learned how to shift timelines. It was the field where your identity was sculpted into the version that is now capable of accessing higher realities. In the present moment, you stand in the center of your multidimensional self. You are no longer only the version shaped by old memories. You are also the version shaped by future possibilities. When you allow these possibilities to influence your state of being, you become a bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. You merge past wisdom with future potential. You create a new frequency that did not exist before you aligned with it. This is inner awakening. It is the realization that the universe is not something you need to convince. It is something you need to align with. It is the understanding that the future you once called impossible is already real in a dimension of consciousness. And the moment you match its emotional signature, you become the version of you who lives that reality. Integration is the moment when effort dissolves and embodiment begins. You are no longer trying to manifest. You are remembering the frequency of the future that belongs to you. And as you hold this frequency, the timeline becomes not only accessible, but inevitable. It unfolds because you have become the person who naturally walks within it. This is not manifestation. This is quantum access. If this message resonated with you, subscribe now to stay connected with the energy that awakens you. Like this video to anchor this frequency in your field. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a transmission that your spirit needs. And comment below, I am the frequency. Let the universe hear your voice. You're not here by chance. You're here to rise and remember who you truly are.